Hello and welcome. My name is Baxter. I'm creating this video today in answer to one question that I get most often when I speak with people about the scriptures. And that is, they say, I can't understand the Bible. It's too complicated. And the Bible really is a history book when you divide it in the right way. And that's what I want to do today, is to help you solve that little issue of I can't understand it. For those of you who are looking to try to understand what the scripture is saying, this that I have on the board behind me is a man-made layout of what the scriptures show in a timeline sequence. So if you take what I'm trying to show you here in this very, very short video, it will help you to begin or make a beginning point of an understanding to the Word of God and how the history falls in place through the Scriptures. So let us begin here. First of all, if we look at, and I tried to create this, wrote it ahead of time so we wouldn't be so long in the video. First thing is, if we take the Bible, as I said, the Bible is in fact the biggest selling book forever and ever, and hopefully will be right on and right on. But many people do not use it or read it because, as I said, they say, I can't understand it. Well, first of all, so let's divide the Bible up. In the Bible, we find there are two major timelines. The first one here is what is known as the Old Testament, which is actually comes from the beginning of time up here unto the cross of Christ whenever he died on that day. That is the turning point of time in this regard. And we call that the Old Testament. The rest of it is called the New Testament. And this goes forward from the time of this cross, of him dying, to forward, and we call this the Christian age. Whoops, sorry, let's move back here. That's the two main divisions. Out of these two divisions, we have three more divisions. We come down under the Old Testament time frame, is we have a period of time from the beginning of time up until Mount Sinai that we call the patriarchal time frame, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Simply means when the fathers of the people ruled. Up to this point, after that, Moses then gets a law from God on Mount Sinai after they come out of Egyptian bondage, and so from Mount Sinai forward to the cross, when this law ended, we call this the Mosaical period, or the Moses' law, as it's referred to many times in the scriptures. And then from this time forward here, on until now, we have what is known as the Christian age, okay? And that's the time period we're living in now. Now, in all of these, under these three, you then can have 16 divisions of the scriptures to be able to understand where a certain thing is happening as you read about that. And so we want to go back here, and we start at the beginning of time, if you will. And so this first little thing that we call the first division is called before the flood. Because at this point here, this is when all the things happened before the flood. Then we move over here, then we'll get to scriptures later of when that was, okay? Then we come to a time period after the flood when Noah came out of the boat and a new world began. And once again, we come back to the same description of the age, because here again, the fathers ruled at this time, and this is the time of Abraham, and the fathers at that point, Jacob and Abraham and Isaac and so forth. And so again, the time that the fathers ruled. From that point, they went into an Egyptian bondage, just as God told them that they would do. And so they went there and were in bondage for 400 years. When they came out of that and they crossed over the river, then they were here then at Mount Sinai, if you will. They got the law of God. They were disobedient to God when they came out by not believing him. And so God caused them to wander around in the wilderness for 40 years. So I call that the wilderness wandering, because that's what they did. After that, when those people had died off that originally came out of here, then we have that they then were going to cross over the Jordan and go into the land of Canaan, which God had promised to Abraham back here. Now they're going to go in, and so they're going to go in and take over this land of Canaan, and so we call this the conquest of Canaan. Then from there, after Joshua died, in that period that they took that over, then the people started becoming disobedient to God again. And then God brought judges in to help to rescue them from the people who were then taking them over and causing them oppression and so forth. And this went on for 1,500 years, and we call this the period of the judges. After this, then the people said, we want a king to be like the nations around us. So God said, okay, you're going to reject me. That's fine. I will give you a king. And we find that there were 3 kings that came into place: King Saul, King David, King Solomon. And that was 120 years. They each reigned 40 years apiece. And so we call this the United Kingdom, because that's when all of Israel was united under one king. At that point when Solomon died, then we have that the kingdom divided. All of Israel separated themselves one from another, having a civil war, if you will. And so the kingdom became divided, and we call this the divided kingdom. And this went on for some time, and God said, because of your disobedience again, then I'm going to cause you to go into bondage again. And we have the 2 tribes of Benjamin and Judah on one side, and the other 10 tribes that were on the other side, and God took away the 10 tribes first. Then what we have is, because Judah and Benjamin had collected themselves as one unit, we find then, we call this the time period next, is Judah alone, because there was a time period between here when they were alone, and the Babylonians had already captured the others, but had not captured Judah yet. And so this is the time period here of Judah alone. When they did finally were overtaken because of their disobedience to God, everybody went into Babylonian captivity for a period of 70 years. And I see I'm getting out of the video, but that's okay. And so they were in captivity for 70 years. After the 70 years, God said, okay, I'm going to bring you back out. This is whenever they came out, and here they went into what we call the restoration of the Jews. When they come out, and they were allowed to go back to the city of Jerusalem, rebuild the walls, rebuild their people, get themselves together. And so this is the restoration of the Jews at this point. So this is why we call it this way. After this time period here, there were all kinds of kings that came in and took over, as you find in the book of Daniel. But there was a time period of 400 years here between this time period right here, the cross, and this Old Testament, where God did not talk to man the way he had in all of this time back here, through the covenant that he had and the different things that he had told them to do. And so between the testaments was a time period of silence of God. Now you see I ran out of room, so we come back over here. So after he told them he's going to bring, way back here, he was going to bring his Savior in. And he did, and it was his son, Jesus, who came to the earth, became a man through Mary, Joseph, through that lifeline there, which was the lineage of David, if you will. And so what we find then in the New Testament, written in the Greek now, when we cross over and we call that the New Testament, still under this time period here, but it was written in Greek because of the rule of the people, okay? Then so what we have is we have the life of Christ in the first thing, what we call the 4 Gospels, which is one story about Jesus the Christ, okay? So you have the life of Christ. At the end of that time period, he was going to be crucified. And so we have that short period in there, if you will, about his crucifixion, a major turning point of time, or a reference of time, because as you see here at this point, we're going to have a change of law. This is what this is all about. We're going to have a change of law. When he dies, his testament, New Testament, now will come into effect, whatever it may be, okay? And so the death of Christ, after that point, it says that he gave his blood to build his church. He purchased it with his own blood, therefore his church. Christ purchased the church just like you would purchase a house and you would put your name on it. He purchased the church and put his name on it, and therefore through the scriptures it is called the Church of Christ, the Church of God, the brethren, several different names, but it clearly says he purchased that. So I call this the Church of Christ because he is the head over what he purchased. That, my friends, is the 16 divisions. This will help you as you go through reading the scriptures and trying to understand. Let me get out where if you want to take a snapshot of that or write it down, I want to leave it up here for you a minute or two on this video so that you can see the layout. Hopefully you can read my writing. Perhaps the spelling is correct also. But this will help you as you're studying the scriptures. Now, if you'd like to have more information about this here, if you'd like to have a study class, we are located at Tebow Street and Riverside in Waycross, Georgia. You should be finding this on our Facebook page, and you should find a phone number somewhere on the page if you'd like to contact somebody. And if not, if you'll leave a message on there that you'd like to be contacted, then we will contact you. And we can further the studies. I'm going to try to do this ever so often. I'm not sure of how often right at the moment, but I'd like to continue a study of videos showing you about what I understand about the scriptures. So I hope you've enjoyed this. If you find this video of great value, won't you share it with your friends? Invite them over to look at it as well. And maybe we all can grow in Christ together. Thank you very much.